Good morning. Apologies for the slight delay. We had one of those fabulous technical hiccups, but everything's fine now. Morning all. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be hosting this webinar about accessible tourism or inclusive tourism, which is so important to be able to enable holidays for all. As we move forward as an industry with our tourism recovery plans, our minds are rightly focused on how to welcome all of our customers back to visit and holiday in Scotland. Accessible tourism is, of course, a pillar in Scotland's responsible tourism strategy. The inclusive tourism market represents a largely untapped and growing market for Scotland's tourism industry, contributing 1.6 billion to the Scotland's tourism economy in 2018. The accessible tourism market includes a wide range of customers, from people with sensory and physical disabilities to families with young children and senior travellers. Talking of which, hang on just one moment. Perfect example of today. Today, we're going to look at why it's important to be an inclusive business. We'll break down some of the common myths and provide tips on how to achieve accessibility for all. Changes can be relatively simple and not cost a fortune to implement. This session is being recorded, so you can come back to it. We'll also have some questions after the session. So if you've got any questions, please add them into the Q&A section. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by two real leaders in inclusive tourism. Marina Di Tuga, Inclusive Tourism Manager at Visit Scotland, and Moira Henderson, owner of The Rings. Moira and her husband David provide bespoke designed innovative self-catering accommodation as part of their diversified farm business to facilitate holidays for all. Moira is a real ambassador for accessible tourism. Moira, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Really, right at the start, as I speak, I think I would like you to think about what you have in your accommodation, because actually you might be more accessible than you think. Immediately, people turn their attention to wheelchair access, and that is not the case. There's only a small percentage of people who need wheelchair access, although for that small percentage, it's vital for them to be able to have a holiday with their family and friends. So if we go to the first slide, the first thing I would like to think about, the next slide, thank you, Joyce. The first thing I'd like you to think about is people with visual impairments. Now, they might not be completely blind, but they may have visual impairments and see things in a distorted manner. Now, this can affect people with dementia. It can be people with physical eye problems or autism. And one of the first things that was highlighted to me was your floor coverings. If there's a shiny floor covering, then people can look at it and it can appear to them like water moving. So if you don't have a shiny floor covering, there you are. You're suited for people with visual impairments and other dementia, etc. things. You'll see that we have colour contrast in the cottage so that people with visual impairments can see the changes in the colours. So the walls are different, the doors are different, and these are all just small things that if you're repainting your place, think about your colour contrasts. Trip hazards. So if you're visually impaired or have difficulty with mobility, you might want to lift the carpets, the rugs that you've got lying about the place. And that simple change could make the difference between somebody having a comfortable stay and making life difficult for them. So if we go to the next slide. And apologies for the quality of this slide, but we don't have a professional photograph that shows what I wanted to highlight. And we'll move to a better picture in a minute. This is our Topaz studio, which is our rear studio, and it was more focused for visual impairments, but also for independent wheelchair users. So you can see we've got a lowered kitchen sink there and a dark hob on a light coloured worktop. And if we move to the next slide, you'll see the colour contrast. So we've got dark wall units against the light coloured wall. The hooks are on a dark board and are dark coloured against the light coloured wall. Can you see the door handles in the cupboards? They're quite chunky, they're quite wide. So people have got arthritic conditions or difficulties with their hands, they can slide their hand in and pull it. Likewise, your door handles, if you've got door handles that are lever door handles rather than knob door handles, that could be an accessible feature and something you want to highlight to people. So there you've got the dark coloured sofa, you've got the darker coloured dressing table there at the side. And for people with visual impairments, you might want to record something for them. Yes, they can often have their computer that can read text, or they can have email go to them and their computer will read it to them. But it might be something quite nice for them, for you to record a wee message saying, as you come in, the door will open towards you, as it does in our properties. The door will open towards you, it will be unlocked. On the right-hand side, on your dressing table, the key will be there for you. To lock the door, you need to push the handle up, etc., etc. And just give them the information. But the one key thing is, don't give them the information and then decide you're going to change the furniture around, because that could be quite catastrophic for them. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is one of our wet rooms, and they're all pretty similar. But just to highlight the accessible things, you'll see there's a dark mosaic down the back up where the toilet is. Now, that's a nice decorative feature, but it also means, again, people with visual impairments can find where the loo is, which is really quite important. If you look at the shower head, it's movable. It can slide up and down. Not everybody's going to have a wet room, but I do sometimes worry a wee bit about fixed shower heads, because you get tall people and short people as well, just physically built that way. They've not got a disability. And the sliding up and down shower head for our guests is imperative, because if they're sitting in a shower chair, they want the shower nearer to them. Also, the fact that the head can be detachable so that a carer can wash them if required. If you look at the toilet roll holder, we've got them freestanding, which means that if somebody has a stroke or a weakness on one side or the other, they can move the toilet roll holder to the side that's going to work best for them. Again, you'll see the sink is sitting on a darker worktop, and there's free space underneath for a wheelchair user to be able to get in to the sink and to be able to wash themselves. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is just a very basic slide, and we're thinking now maybe more about hearing impairments. Somebody who was not profoundly deaf, he explained to me that when you have a hearing distortion or hearing difficulties, mentally it can be extremely taxing to work out what the sounds are. So if they're in a town or city situation where there's constant noise, they get physically very exhausted. So if you're in a country location, you've ticked a big box there, because they can come out to the country location, have peace and quiet, and actually relax and enjoy themselves. Something to think about though when you are welcoming guests with hearing impairments is face them. Be very conscious that you're not talking to them and then turning your head away, because many of them lip read. And if they don't completely lip read, they will lip read to a certain extent. My family used to joke at me, because I used to say, I can't hear you, I don't have my contact lenses in. I'm not aware of having a hearing impairment, but I think we all use our different senses to a degree, and more so people with hearing impairments. I haven't gone the length of learning sign language, but my granddaughter is. So, I mean, these are wee things, even just to learn some basic sign language to welcome people. But if you're in a country location, think about that. Think about maybe using that as an asset for your business. And we'll go to the next slide. And I've just put this one in because this does highlight some of the levels that we have gone to. So if you look to the ceiling, you will see the tracking facility there. And there's a hook. And what we do is we hook the motor on that then can lift people out of bed. We would remove one of those beds, if not two of the beds, and put a hospital-style profiling bed in that folds up, and we take it out. My husband's got quite good at taking these beds up and down. We're a wee bit like furniture removers sometimes. More so this week, we have got 3 young brothers, all with muscular dystrophy. They have been in care for 6 years. They've no contact with their natural family, just their carers. And these carers have absolutely pulled every stop out to get them out away on holiday. And the 3 of them are having their first holiday ever together at the Rings. It's really pretty special. So we've moved a lot of furniture for these guys, but that just shows you the ceiling tracking hoist there. Now, I'll be honest with you, we've had very few people have come in that are able-bodied and even noticed it. They see it. I don't even know if they see it there. One lady spotted it, but that was because she was involved in looking after people, and she knew immediately what it was. But it's not in your face. It's not distressing to people. And actually, to be honest with you, do you know what? If it was, well, tough. It meets the needs of a lot of people, but not everybody's going to go to these levels. So if we move now to the cabins, and you can go onto my website, we'll look at the next slide. If you can go onto my website and have a wee look, and maybe after this talk, you'll maybe be able to pick up things yourself. So here we have got dark kettle, dark toaster, dark microwave, again, to help people with visual impairments. That doesn't cost you anymore. That's just buying things that are going to meet the need. We did an online survey when we thought about building the cabins. We realised that the cottage was great for wheelchair users, but not meeting the needs for those, particularly with autism, ADHD, challenging behaviour and similar conditions. So my daughter put up an online survey, and without too much difficulty, we actually had 300 responses telling us what they need. It was simple things like non-reflective surfaces. Don't have a shiny kettle, because my child with autism will stand there all day and we'll never get him out the door because he'll just want to look at that shiny surface. It doesn't cost you any more. It's just when you're buying your kettle or buying your toaster, think about non-shiny surfaces. You'll see again, we've put in a couple of the cabins, we've made them wheelchair accessible as well, because we recognise there are families with multiple problems. So we have a friend who's got MS. She's not permanently, but she is in a wheelchair a lot of the time. Her daughter has severe autism, but not only that, they foster a wee child, a wee boy, Pip, and Pip has severe autism, and he would be what's described as an escapee. So he needs to be kept safe because he's no awareness of danger. And you would have a similar situation with people with dementia, etc. So the cabins have been designed with lockable kitchens, 4 of them. 4 cabins out of the 6 have lockable kitchens, and you can lock the door and take the key out. You can lock the windows, and that's all in an effort to keep these youngsters safe. Well, youngsters and adults. I mean, there's no. I went on holiday, but I took my sister down to a clinic, a private clinic, and she had cognitive problems, and I was so relieved when I got to the property and discovered I could actually lock the door and take the key out and put it under my pillow, because I knew she was safe at night and I could at least sleep for a while. These are simple things, but they're actually quite profound and quite meaningful when you've got somebody that you're trying to care for. 3 of the cabins are within an enclosed area. So we joke, we're actually built on what was an Iron Age fort, and we joke that this is our wee fortress area, and they'll be able to close the gate, and those 3 cabins, there'll be a garden area where the children or youngsters can play. Parents can sit and have a coffee and relax, knowing that the child or youngster can't get any further on. If we can look at the next slide. The next slide, please. There we go. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So just to give you some ideas of some things that you might want to consider to put in. So if you look at the first picture with the blue shower chair sitting there, but I want you to look on the wall. There are stuck-on grab rails there. These are brilliant because you can put them wherever you like. And I kind of came across them simply because when we were building the rings and I got a price for 8 ensuite bedrooms with grab rails, I was quoted £10,000 and I didn't have £10,000. I thought, what can we do? And you know, these are absolutely brilliant. They will cost you about £12 each, and you can just have them in your cupboard. I would suggest you buy one. They don't suck onto every tile. I think porcelanosa, I can't see the word, tiles you might have difficulty with, but buy one, find out, they are extremely secure, and then the guests can put them where they need them. My husband's 6'2", I'm 5'0". Where do you put a grab rail? It's a no-brainer. They're fantastic, and they suck on and really strong. The shower chair, if you have a wet room and you're thinking I could make more use of this, the shower chair is about £250. It's not a vast investment really, and they will last you for a long time. If we go to the next slide, this is an ETAT. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I meant the next picture. Sorry, Joyce, go back one. Thank you. So the centre picture there, we've talked about the movable toilet roll holder, but the seat there, if you have a look, you can see a lot of seats that supposedly clip on to the actual toilet. I've had them and they don't really work terribly well. This is a much better option. You can adjust the legs to the height. You can take a handle off if need be. Yes, you need to be able to store it, but for £90, it's really quite a helpful piece of kit to have, and you can promote yourselves to people with that are able to walk but have difficulties. And then the final picture there is what's called a bed lever, and that just slides under your mattress, and you can get them from between £40 and £80. And again, doesn't take up an awful lot of space, but is quite helpful. And then we'll move to the very last slide, which is just a wee bit more about assistance dogs. You'll have heard a lot about assistance dogs, I'm sure. We always tend to immediately, or those of my generation, think about guide dogs for the blind, but now assistance dogs cover huge amounts of areas. So actually, I spoke about Sally there. That's a picture of Sally, and she has kindly given us this information. Sally was Visit Scotland's pin-up girl for assistance dogs, really. But I want to just talk very, very briefly about Philip Biggs. He is a hearing dog, Marsh, and he stayed in a hotel before he had Marsh, and there was a fire in the hotel during the night. It was a kind of U-shaped hotel, and the reception knew that he had a hearing problem, but nobody came for him through the night to evacuate him from the hotel. The first he knew about it was at breakfast the next morning. Thankfully, the fire had been in the other wing and he wasn't affected, but he knew he had to take responsibility for his own safety. He couldn't rely on others to be responsible for him. And so he decided that he would need to get a assistance dog. They are working when they have their jackets on. They are extremely highly trained, and you will have no issues whatsoever with an assistance dog, I can assure you. Extremely well trained, but still, when they've not got a jacket on, they like a wee bit petting, but don't pet them when their jacket's on, they're working. They can be used for people with autism. They can be hearing dogs, and by that I don't mean they take a wee notepad and write down and let the person see it. They alert to different sounds, and they're trained to be to react to different sounds and to indicate to their owner what the different sounds mean. I mean, it's incredible, absolutely incredible what these dogs can do. Some can indicate when there's going to be a hypoglycemic attack in a diabetic. Some can indicate when there's going to be an epileptic seizure. So these dogs are absolutely life-giving to their owner. And as I say, they will have no issues at all. Now, I'm going to stop there because I think you might have questions for me, but I hope that's whetted your appetite.
That's incredibly helpful. Thank you so much, Moira. I mean, I think it's really important to recognize that, first of all, not all accessible issues are necessarily visible. So kind of understanding the permutations of how you can help people without having to have all of the different equipment there. And as Moira said, you don't need to have the full structural pieces in place, but some of the really simple ideas what aren't expensive, those suck-on tile handrails are brilliant, and the freestanding toilet holders, that's such a simple idea and yet so achievable and would help so many people. Again, with the dark kettle and the toaster, I mean, such brilliant, cheap ways to make your properties accessible for more people.
I should say, Fiona, I could spend a whole programme on talking about autism. It's a huge subject and something that physically a lot of people, you know, they don't need huge adaptations, but I think that needs to be for another session. Absolutely.
And we'd be delighted to, we'll pull together a guidance sheet after this as well. I think that would be really valuable. And I know that there's lots of questions coming in already. And if we don't get to all of the questions, don't worry, we will answer them afterwards as well. I know we want to hear so much more because there's so much more to hear. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Marina Di Duca at the moment just to get some more information from her. Marina is the Inclusive Tourism Manager at Visit Scotland and is responsible for the development and management of an Inclusive Scotland programme aimed at engaging tourism businesses to provide more inclusive products and services and provide a quality visitor experience for all visitors to Scotland. Marina, welcome. It's lovely to have you with us today.
Thank you, Fiona, and thanks, Moira, because you've set the scene quite well from a practical level, what you can do within your business. But I'm just going to step back a little bit and share with you the statistics, the rationale for why Visit Scotland is basically focusing in on this market as a potential growth market. And just bear with me while I get this on screen. Can someone tell me if you can actually, yeah, can you see that? Is that
perfect?
Okay? Yeah, great. Okay, so the presentation that I'm going to give today is about delivering an inclusive visitor experience now and in the future. Obviously with COVID, the situation has been even more exasperated for people and families with access requirements or particularly when they're traveling for tourism purposes. Just a little bit of statistics to give you some sense of what the market and the scale of the market. And this is really why tourist boards across the world focus in on inclusive and accessible tourism. So there's a potential of 17 million in the UK, and that's a massive number. 1 in 4 households are affected by a disability. So that can be anything from sight, hearing, dementia, autism, mobility. So you can see how important it is as a society that we encourage businesses to make their businesses more inclusive and accessible. There are 13.3 million disabled people in the UK. There's 4.5 million carers. Carers actually are vital for people who are cared for. They're the people that really sometimes have to do the research, find out if businesses can cater for the person that they're caring for, which is a really, really difficult task if the information isn't made available in advance. Good accessibility is important for older people and for parents. And just another statistic to bear in mind that 45% of people aged 65 plus have some form of disability. It could be sight or hearing. And it's estimated that the purple pound, which is what we call the spend from that accessible market, it sits at 249 billion. This slide here is from an organisation called Purple, who are behind Purple Tuesday, and they're campaigning to try and get businesses across the UK to understand the importance of customer care for disabled people. And they've put together this particular slide. And again, it's just focusing in on why is there so much focus in on the accessible and inclusive market? And when you start to look at the percentages that appear on this slide, 16% of working age population has a disability. 15% of the world's population has a disability. 19% of the UK population have a disability. And the big one there is 53% of households in the UK have a connection to someone with a disability. I myself have a mum who's 94, who was diagnosed with dementia 2 years ago, just as COVID came in. And certainly when I travel with my parent, I look for things like a wet room or a shower, not over a bath, because it's easier for mum to have a shower. There's lots of things that make it possible for people to travel, but having that advanced information is key. Just to give you a little bit of a focus on what the scale of the opportunity is. So some work was done by Visit Britain a couple of years ago, and they looked at British adults with an impairment. Did they actually take a domestic trip in the last 12 months? And they found out that over 300,000 hadn't actually taken a trip in the last 12 months. And that was mainly due to the lack of accessibility provision. And it could be as simple as not knowing what the business has. So no description of what's available at that particular property or business. They calculated that that was worth 83 million to the economy. But when you translate that to businesses, there's a huge loss for the business as well. And just at the bottom of that slide, you can see the breakdown of mobility impairments across the population. So yes, wheelchair users are 1%, but they do have quite complex requirements around layout and navigation. So that's why our minds always immediately go to the wheelchair user, which is quite right, because they do have some very specific access requirements. But actually, mobility and non-wheelchair user is actually the highest percent at 5%. So that could be people with long-term sickness or illness. Hearing impairment is quite a big one, visual impairment. The value of this market currently, or as it was in 2018, the UK domestic market was worth 1.6 million to the Scottish economy, which is a huge amount. And the day visitor market was worth 1.1 billion. You can see from this slide that we're saying 83% of disabled people tell other people about their experience. Again, statistics that come from Ewan's Guide survey, which is a review site for disabled people by disabled people. And they are telling us that 83% of their customers tell others about their experience, and 49% share it on social media. If we turn our minds to the senior market, we have an ageing population, not just in the UK, across the world really, and it's a huge market. It's worth a sort of third of the overall value of tourism to Scotland. They spend 20% more than the average consumer on leisure and hospitality. And there's been a huge increase in domestic trips and spend in the last 12 years, a 21% increase in domestic trips and spend up by 45%. Again, some of these statistics have come from Barclays Bank, who do quite a lot of insights work and research work into the disability market and the seniors market. And they projected that 86% of seniors will make a return visit. And that they compared that with 18 to 34-year-olds. So they're an incredibly loyal market. This slide is actually from Accessible, who we work with, a charity that actually performs a vital task and works with many local authorities across Scotland, but also some bigger establishments and businesses, and they produce access guides. They do it at a cost, but these are all comments that have come back from their user groups that they regularly consult with. And one of the things that I remember hearing from a lady who had a disabled child, she talked about how having a disabled child meant that she couldn't do things spontaneously. She had to plan. Gone were the days that she could just get her child or a baby into a pram or a pushchair and go out. And that's all to do with not knowing what's out there and what to expect. And there may be too many barriers to overcome for that person to actually go on holiday or go out and enjoy a day visit or an attraction. When businesses talk about my property is accessible, who's it accessible to? We never ever suggest to businesses that you should declare yourself accessible. You simply describe what you have at your business. It's not prescribing. And people often say, if I don't know what business has, I can't actually make a booking and I can't go. And access information is as important as opening hours, location, and other details. Again, all of these comments are what accessible visitors have said in surveys. Accessibility impact. We're more, again, coming from people with specific access requirements. 98% have said they're more likely to visit if access information is available. And I can tell you that when I first worked in this area, I was working on industry communications at the time, and I was helping out a colleague developing a lot of tools for the industry. We did several pieces of research, and this statistic has not varied much in the last 10, 12 years, which is quite astounding. We still have, up in the high 90s, people saying they're more likely to visit if access information is available. And 9 out of 10 say that they are actually anxious about visiting a place for the first time if they don't have that information. And they wouldn't visit a place if they didn't have access information available at the planning stage. So 98% of people check the accessibility of a venue before they go, and 81% expect to find it on a website or expect to find it on your business portal, whatever that is. So for us at Visit Scotland, it became really clear that we had to get the message out that the focus has to be on quality information provision. If we're trying to increase the visitor experience from the planning stage right through to when they visit, we have to get the message across that information is really, really important for this market. And we've heard for a number of years how important information is and how information is king. But actually, for this market, it's imperative, not just for disabled people, for seniors, for families with young children. It's important to have that quality of information in advance. We produced an accessibility guide tool, free to use, with Visit England. It's available online. I'll share with you the link at the end of the slides. We give you a step-by-step guide on how to do it, and Moira's actually done her guide, and I've got a copy of that on my presentation here. There's also examples of other businesses and what they've done with their access guide, but it's a great way of sharing and describing your business. It's all about how to get to your business, how you get around, what facilities you have, what training your staff have gone through. These are a couple of screenshots from the website itself. So you have help guides that talk you through exactly what you need to do. And there's example guides there, so you can look at what they look like when you finish completing all the questions that you're asked about. This particular access guide is for the rings, so you can see that there's a picture, a welcome, and then the guide is split into sections. So you've got an at-a-glance view of what your business can cater for, getting there, getting around inside, getting around outside, and then the customer care support. You're given a URL, which is on that screen there, and then we're suggesting that you paste that onto your website on the home page. When you go to the trouble of creating something like this, you wouldn't want to hide it somewhere down at the bottom of your home page or tucked away in through your website. Have it up there on the home page, really visible at the top of the page. One of the things I wanted to do for today was just share with you some of the statistics that we have pulled out from surveys that we've done with Ewan's Guide, Tourism for All, and Vocal, which is a charity that supports carers. And we've done it through COVID to find out what specific information would help people to travel again when restrictions were lifted. And these top 3 questions were the things that came through from all those surveys. So what access facilities are available at the venue? What are their current access and hygiene measures? And are there any special care or services offered at this time? So providing confidence and reassurance right now is obviously key. We have to do that for all customers. But your access facilities and services that you offer at your property, giving clear and comprehensive information is really important. So please use our tool. The accessibilityguides.org is the link. Once you've done it, add your business to Ewan's Guide. It's free, and you can then start promoting your accessibility to people that are looking for that information. And if you don't feel confident in doing that right now, put your access guide on your homepage, get some information and feedback from customers that have used it, and then build your confidence and then start to share that information more widely. Another question that was asked on the survey was, can I find published information on current access and hygiene measures? And well, yes, you can. We can encourage you to add your processes and procedures in one place, add it into your access guide, and then add the link to the homepage of your website. And again, another question that came through from the customer was, what special customer care or services are offered at this time? And some businesses have offered a drop-off arrangement if they don't have a car park facility, or there's blue badge parking nearby long-term if they don't have their own car park at the property. So all these things you could introduce into your access guide. Do you feel anxious about visiting somewhere you've not been before? So just to reiterate, 75% say yes, and the statistics speak for themselves. Information is really, really key. So that's even before they've booked to come to visit your and stay in your property. Couple of examples of services and resources that you can also tap into. So again, when you're planning a refurbishment of your property, that might be the time to look at your bathroom facilities, whether you want to introduce a wet room. Many businesses have said to me, I'm 4-star and 5-star, I don't want to compromise my design. An accessible designed bathroom does not need to look in any way clinical. Motion Spot is an accessible design specialist, and they're creating inclusive spaces and supplying innovative accessible products all the time. It's well worth looking at their website, even just to get ideas and reassurance that actually with the right professionals on board, you can create spaces that are really high end. And these will make your property much more flexible for any customer that wants to visit you. Virtual inclusion is a particular service that's been created, a company in Fife who are doing inclusive virtual experiences, and they've done something like that for Dundee V&A. They did it during COVID. So again, people could see the layout of the museum in advance, be reassured that it can actually cater for them. So they're taking the power back and deciding whether a venue is suitable for their needs. And Purple, as I said, is the agency behind Purple Tuesday, which is on the 2nd of November this year. And they have absolutely fantastic top tips for disability language, etiquette, for staff, for yourself, just to understand that whole sort of area of language and how sometimes we can feel a bit uncomfortable. So if we're writing copy for our website, we want to make sure that we get our language right. So those tips and those tools at that URL are fantastic. They also have information on how to create an accessible website too, but that's for a whole nother discussion. Just a little bit more information about Motion Spot. So they have lots and lots of product information. They also have a brochure that you can get hold of. They've got grab rails, as Moira said, hinge rails. They've got riser rails for your shower head. They have lots of really good imagery on their website, which again can inspire you and reassure you that you do not have to worry about an accessible facility equals clinical or reduced design. That's the website for the Inclusive Virtual Experience website. As you can see, they have mentioned tourism, and they really do bring to life your venue and your property, and allows your potential customer to have a look in advance at your property. And it's a great way to add value to your access guide by adding a link to a virtual experience. Just to finally say that the steps that we always sort of recommend businesses should go through to be more inclusive and to reach out to more customers is, first of all, create your accessibility guide. Look at catering for different requirements. If your website isn't accessible, just make sure there's a number or an email really, really visible on your website so people can use that to get in touch. We appreciate that a lot of businesses have legacy websites and they won't be accessible, but that is a really, really simple workaround to connect with people that maybe use screen readers, etc. And then the third sort of area that we would always tell you to focus in on is improve your customer service. Make use of the many, many free online training resources. And it helps you welcome and feel confident welcoming disabled customers across many different disabilities. And if you want more information, you want more help, you want more tips to where to go, obviously contact me at my email address. That's the URL of our toolkit. We'd encourage you to go there. And just finally, on accessibility, on access dogs, we've just had a recent complaint from someone that went to a restaurant and was basically put in the corner of a restaurant because they had an access dog. There is a lot of misunderstanding about an access dog. Access dogs are given sociability training, so they are, in fact, they should be treated as a piece of equipment, not as a pet. And there is a legal obligation to accept accessibility dogs, even if you don't accept pets. Obviously, there are some considerations, things like if you have a severe allergy to a dog, then there is a medical reason why you can't do that. But in the main, accessibility dogs are certainly covered by legislation, and they are treated as an essential piece of equipment for that disabled person. And they are extremely well behaved and highly trained, as Moira said. If you ever have someone turn up with a dog that doesn't have a coat, that can happen because there is now legislation to cover an owner trained dog, which might not be wearing a coat or a harness. So if that happens, you're perfectly within your right to ask the individual to just confirm that the dog has had sociability training. That's the only thing I was just going to say on access dogs, and that's me. I'll hand over. There was a poll that we were going to run, and I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Marina, thank you so much. That's been incredibly insightful. Yeah, we were just going to run a very quick poll. So Mel, if you could just stick the first question up. While these polls are running, I will just start the Q&A. So just to be sure that you know that we are going to be updating all of our guidance sheets to do with accessibility and inclusive tourism in the next few weeks. So we're going to be launching those onto the website. And we'll also include a Q&A from this session. So we will be updating you on everything that we've been discussing today, because it's been so helpful. Donald has said it's been really informative and shows how simple it can be to address accessibility issues. He asked if there was a link for a good stick-on grab rail, and Moira has already answered that. Just Google it. You can get them for as little as £5.99. There's really no excuse not to, I would have thought. I mean, I think that I've taken away some incredible ideas and tips from this session, and I hope that everybody else has too. We do have a few questions, if you guys don't mind. My property isn't wheelchair accessible, so is there anything I can offer this market? Marina, perhaps you can help with that. I know I have that problem because I have steps leading up to my self-catering house. So what can we do to help?
Yeah, so the main point there really is to say that the accessibility market isn't all about wheelchair users. As I said, my mum's got dementia, her mobility is fine, but there are some key things that I need to know in advance. For example, I would say I wouldn't want to go to a property where there's a shower over a bath. So I would want to know that there's either a separate shower cubicle that she can walk into, or it's a wet room. So the information that you provide is the way that you open up your business to more customers. And by sharing that information, you're actually, by default, making yourself more inclusive, because you're saying, this is what I have. You know, this may suit your needs, but if you don't have that level of detail, then you prevent me from ever being able to access your business, because I just don't have the time to look at the finer detail and then make a phone call. And, sometimes you're talking about, if you're going onto websites and you're searching for things, you can come up with so many search results. Where do you begin? Whereas if you can search the businesses that have access guides, and then you can go straight to the information about the bathroom facility, if that's the thing that's important to you. Or if I'm traveling with mum, she has a hearing impairment. If she's in a hotel, I would want to know that that hotel has a vibrating pillow, for example. Another story that we were told, there was an American couple whose daughter was profoundly deaf, and she was in a different wing in the hotel, and the fire alarm went off and she did not hear it. And the hotel didn't have a vibrating pillow, didn't have an evacuation plan for someone with an accessibility requirement. So these little things, vibrating pillows cost less than £20. So a bit like the grab rails, if you can get a vibrating pillow, if your fire alarm does go off, then it alerts the deaf person to the alarm going off. So little things like that. There's a whole list of things, and I think the fact sheet that you're going to produce is really good because you can put these things in, and we can give you some information on other equipment that you can get that really is quite a cheap investment.
That's just so helpful. So the best thing we can do at the moment is update our accessibility guides or statements, or indeed just write them for the first time, and invest in these pretty cheap options in terms of like opening up our market to this huge opportunity. Question again, Marina, maybe in fact both of you, apart from, say, for example, Ewan's Guide, are there specific agencies or advertising platforms specifically for, say, something like dementia or autism, rather than people necessarily in a wheelchair per se?
So sorry, Moira, I cut in there. But, I mean, you can reach out to the charities, Alzheimer's UK, Red Cross. They actually produce newsletters that come out to people that they're supporting, and they do sometimes cover properties that are good for people living with dementia or autism or whatever. There's also specialist magazines which we can give you a list. There's an Able magazine. There's lots of disability magazines that you can reach out to that have traditionally done spreads on Scottish tourism, actually. And we've thought about pulling together a spread for Scotland. So we can keep you posted. If we do something like that next year, it might be something that we could come out to the association and say, look, we're buying a spread. It would be good to feature some of the properties that are accessible in that spread. But yeah, there are magazines. The other good thing to do, and Moira's probably done this before, is connecting to Facebook groups, online groups, and influencers as well. So we have done some influencer trips before, and then the influencer writes about the property. So again, our press team, when COVID is kind of in the past and we are traveling a lot more and we're inviting people to stay at locations, that's another way of doing it, is contacting influencers as well. Sorry, Moira.
That's okay. I'm going to just give a wee word of warning there, Marina, because I have had several people who have come and said, oh, if you give me a reduction, I'll do a blog for you or something. And I
wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it unless you know they are. I mean, you will get that, because that's.
Yeah. So I'm just that wee word of warning, just to be cautious.
I think what I mean by an influencer is it's a
Yes,
qualified
recognised. Yeah.
influencer.
Well, some of the ones that have actually come to me, Marina, are recognised. Not that I have gone to them, but they have come to me, and yeah, I should really say to them, let me see your article or whatever before you post it. But yeah, there's been. I'm going to actually say, because you have this impression that people with disabilities, and because you're providing something for them, are going to be really very grateful and whatnot. And in the main, they are. But there's a very, very tiny percentage that they're just not nice people. So they're like all our customers. You get that wee percentage that are just really not nice.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate side effect of welcoming guests, I suppose. But there you are. Quite right. Just to add on in terms of marketing and so on, we haven't really published it yet, but we're really delighted to have received some funding from Visit Scotland in order to do a marketing campaign over the winter and upgrade our Embrace Scotland marketing website. So during that process, we're going to be focusing on accessibility and inclusive tourism. So just watch this space, because we as an association are also offering opportunities to market your properties. So whether it's just if you've got the vibrating pillow or the grab rails or anything like that, to all the way up to the rings, and it's absolute showcase for accessible tourism, we'll be able to help you do that. On that subject, Moira, what's the most requested piece of kit?
Well, for us it would be like the profiling bed and the ceiling tracking hoist, because that's the market that we really kind of promote to. But what I would say is social workers and your council, the short breaks teams within, I think, most councils, we certainly have 1 in 5, the short breaks team, and it's helpful to let them know what you have available. More and more respite places are closing and beds being removed, and we get more and more guests that are coming with their carers for respite, and they are regular. Within the disability market, and Marina, I'll confirm this, you get a lot of repeat bookings. You get a lot of word of mouth. Oh, so-and-so told me about this, you know, and so they said it would work for us because the others have come and stayed. So yes, I would highlight that respite care is a big thing as well. And some of these bookings might be every 4 weeks. They might be every 6 weeks or every couple of months. But if your place works for them, and again, we could be talking about autism, it might be that for particular guests, you just remove all the ornaments, you know. Okay, it's a bit of work. Shift all your ornaments, take the pictures off the walls, but that'll make it more manageable for the carers coming. So it's not always just with families, there's carers coming as well. We've been used for people who are having work done in their property. So they need to decant to somewhere that's suitable. And likewise, that could be similar for some of the accommodation providers here. They might be suitable for that.
So wise. Are there any grants available to make changes at the moment, or is that just utterly hopeless?
I'm not aware of any. I don't think there are any. So
if you find any, let you know.
The other questions was was sort of what percentage of people with disabilities. And for us, we've been in business 6 years, and I have to say it took a good number of years before people actually started to have confidence, and we had accessibility guides. Like Marina says, a lot of people are just skeptical about it, that they're anxious about coming away because they've got what they need in their house. And it's a big thing to come away to a different property. So lots of pictures and good descriptions. And as Marina has said, just say what you have. Don't try to say that you're something that you're not.
I think the other thing is, years ago we did access statements, and I think people found them quite difficult because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how to write them. So what I would say is, don't make it difficult for yourself. Use the tool that's there. We invested public money in producing a website free to use to help businesses overcome the difficulties in creating their own access guides. So there's a sort of consistency for the end user because the format is consistent. And again, if they're comparing 5 different businesses that all have access guides, then they can compare it in a consistent manner. And using video footage images in your guide is possible. So that would bring it to life for people. And it also helps your staff too, because if someone's asking, they can send a link to the customer so that they've got that into their inbox as well, in advance of them coming, even if they booked, but they want to just have that with them when they travel. It's a good way of doing it. The other thing I was just going to say, there are carer centres around Scotland, and we're working with them on the Scott Spirit Holiday Voucher Scheme, which I had hoped to be able to announce today that we're extending to self-catering. But we are planning to do that, so watch this space. We'll let you know when that does open. We're just having to adjust something on our form. I was waiting to hear today, but unfortunately it's not been done yet. But hopefully it will be in the next week or so.
Well, that's two pieces of good news. A, because I wrote an access statement years ago and it was a nightmare, so I'm absolutely going to transfer over to the toolkit. And B, that's really good news about the Scott Spirit. That's really great. And obviously we'll let everybody know in due course when we know more about that. I'd just like to say thank you both so much for your invaluable advice and top tips. It's been really brilliant. And we will transfer all of that information into our guidance sheets and send that out to the membership as quickly as we can, and we'll include all of the questions. So we'll do a little FAQ and that sort of thing. So really, really valuable session this morning. Thank you so much. For everybody that's on, next week is our AGM for members only, and also we are being joined by industry experts looking at the challenges and opportunities post-pandemic, the new extraordinary. We've hopscotched over the new normal. We're looking at 2022 future destination strategies and emerging trends. So do join us, please. And if you can't join us, we are a membership organisation, so we do need you to vote. So there are links for proxy voting out there. We'll keep sending those out. So please do vote, because if we don't get enough votes, then we can't do the right thing. With regard to short-term let licensing, again, you'll all know this is our absolutely last chance to be heard. So please respond to the local government committee survey. The deadline is the 29th, so that's next week. Again, we're sharing the survey link far and wide. Please respond. Please respond if you're a guest and go and stay places. Please get your neighbours and your family to respond to this survey. As I say, it's our last chance to make things really happen. And if you haven't written to your MSPs and said that you welcomed the movement so far, but we're still not happy, then please do it. Thank you so much again. We've just hit 12 o'clock, so well done, everyone. Thanks so much to Moira and Marina and everyone that came along today. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.